The conflict of opposites, the myth of Echo and Nemesis. There is nothing absolute in the world. Good and evil, love and hate, justice and injustice, all these concepts are intertwined in a complex web of human destinies. And sometimes, in order to restore the balance, we have to sacrifice something beautiful. This is what the myth of Echo and Nemesis teaches us. Echo and Nemesis are two powerful divine beings whose interactions in Greek mythology have given rise to many legends and myths. Debunking these myths will help to better understand their true nature and influence on Greek society. Greek mythology is saturated with a variety of characters, each with their own unique personality and significant role in the myths. Among the many deities, two personalities that attracted special attention stood out: Echo and Nemesis. These characters, while possessing divine status, were often perceived as capricious and willful, which contributed to the formation of myths that sometimes departed from their real nature. Echo and Nemesis were characterized by unique personality traits and roles that made them notable among the other gods. Echo, known for her beautiful voice and ability to make music, was a symbol of beauty and art, while Nemesis, representing justice and retribution, was the embodiment of strength and discipline. Together they formed contrasting images, revealing different aspects of human nature and social structure. These two sisters played important roles in the lives of the ancient Greeks, greatly influencing their worldview and culture. Myths about them were passed down from generation to generation, shaping ideas about how one should live and what rules to follow. Over time, however, many of these stories took on a tinge of fiction that overshadowed their original meaning. Echo was born in the Olympic sphere, where strict rules and laws reigned. Her parents were Zeus, the supreme god of the Greek pantheon, and Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. From them Echo inherited not only outstanding abilities, but also had the opportunity to spend her childhood surrounded by luxury and refined taste. As a child, Echo enjoyed all the delights of Olympus, learning the art of music and singing from the best tutors. Her life was lived in harmony and joy, until one day fate led her to meet Nemesis, her sister, whose strictness and seriousness contrasted sharply with Echo's light and carefree character. Echo was depicted as a girl with long hair, often loose or styled with flowers or ribbons. Her face radiates joy and cheerfulness. Echo's clothing is light and airy, often transparent or translucent, symbolizing her ephemeral and weightless nature. She may be dressed in a tunic or dress decorated with flowers or patterns. Echo is often depicted in motion, dancing or playing musical instruments. Her posture can be graceful and fluid, reflecting her connection to art and music. One of Echo's main attributes are musical instruments such as the lyre, flute, or harp. These instruments symbolize her talent and ability to create music and sounds. Echo is often surrounded by flowers and plants, symbolizing her connection to nature and beauty. Sometimes Echo is depicted with sound waves emanating from her mouth or musical instrument. Echo may be surrounded by birds such as nightingales or larks. Other animals such as rabbits or deer may also be depicted next to her, symbolizing ease and grace. In her youth, Echo was a delightful and charming girl who mesmerized men and women, enchanting them with her voice, musical talent, and demeanor. She had a unique gift, the ability to reproduce sounds heard by humans themselves, and even the voices of other divine beings. This ability made her an indispensable companion at festivals and gatherings of the Olympian gods, where her music and songs sounded like magic, creating an atmosphere of fun and joy. Her presence turned any festivities into real musical performances filled with joy and harmony. First of all, Echo was a master of improvisation. She could instantly pick up any melody, whether it was a solemn hymn or a merry dance, and embellish it with her own variations. Thanks to this, the festivities gained a special liveliness and dynamics, because each performance of Echo became an unexpected surprise for the audience. Secondly, Echo helped to create an atmosphere of unity and harmony among the participants of the festivities. Her voice could sound simultaneously as the voice of many, uniting all those present in a common rhythm and mood. This helped to strengthen the bonds between the gods and heroes, making their meetings even more enjoyable and memorable. In addition, the Echo served as a kind of echo of the gods themselves. When one of them made a speech or expressed an opinion, Echo repeated his words, amplifying their sound and giving them additional weight. In this way, she helped to emphasize important points and made speeches more effective. Finally, Echo was a source of inspiration for other musicians and poets. Her ability to reproduce and interpret sounds inspired them to create new works, enriching the cultural heritage of Olympus. However, despite her great abilities, Echo faced difficulties and conflicts due to her excessive gullibility and talkativeness. Her sociability and tendency to talk often led to misunderstandings. People saw her as a superficial person, unable to have deep and meaningful conversations. This created the feeling that Echo lived in her own world, where beauty and art were more important than the real problems and concerns of those around her. Over time, her frivolity and excessive frankness caused her relationships with the other deities to become more and more complicated. Echo continued to enjoy life without thinking about the possible consequences of her behavior, until one chance encounter turned her fate forever. Nemesis was born in a dark part of the universe where her parents, Nycta and Krona, were cold and gloomy beings. She arose from a combination of dusky light and lunar energy, which predetermined her unique nature. Raised in an atmosphere of cold and darkness, she grew up unapproachable and aloof. Her birth was accompanied by an atmosphere of mystery and fear. The gloom that enveloped her cradle was so dense that it seemed as if space itself resisted her appearance. Nemesis' parents, immersed in the study of magic and occult practices, passed on their knowledge to their daughter, but with it a cold attitude toward the world. A strict upbringing and lack of warmth in the family made Nemesis withdrawn and indifferent. She rarely smiled and almost never showed emotion. Her eyes always remained cold and penetrating, as if she was evaluating everyone in her field of vision. From childhood, Nemesis learned to control her feelings and obey the strict laws set by her parents. Over time, Nemesis became the embodiment of the idea of justice and fairness. Her stern gaze and relentlessness in decision-making made her fearsome to those who broke the established norms. She enforced the laws and punished those who tried to circumvent them. Her justice was ruthless, and no one could escape her wrath if they committed a transgression. In myths, Nemesis is portrayed as a harsh goddess, responsible for justice and punishment. She embodies justice, observance of laws, and is a symbol of moral purity and responsibility. Her image is associated with rigidity and intransigence, which often led to difficult situations and conflicts. People feared her, but respected her for her strict adherence to the principles of justice. Nemesis is often depicted dressed in a long dress or tunic, usually dark in color, which emphasizes her seriousness and power. Her attire may be decorated with gold patterns or emblems emphasizing her high status. She may wear a crown or wreath on her head, symbolizing her divine power and wisdom. She may also wear a blindfold, indicating her impartiality and objectivity in passing judgment. One of the key symbols of Nemesis is the scale she holds in her hands. This attribute symbolizes balance and fairness, as well as her role in evaluating actions and assigning punishments. Sometimes Nemesis is depicted with wings, which symbolizes her speed and ability to catch up with anyone deserving of punishment. In the other hand, she may hold a whip or sword, symbolizing the power and ability to punish. The whip indicates her ability to inflict pain and suffering, and the sword the finality and inevitability of decisions. Nemesis is often depicted standing on a chariot drawn by lions or griffins. The chariot symbolizes her mobility and ability to move quickly, performing her duty. Lion, associated with Nemesis, symbolizes the power, strength, and courage needed to carry out justice. Griffins, half eagle half lion, are also associated with Nemesis, symbolizing the vigilance and visual acuity needed to detect injustice. Echo and Nemesis symbolize two opposing sides of Greek mythology. Echo represents outward beauty and emotional openness, while Nemesis embodies inner discipline and moral leadership. Their confrontation and the ensuing drama highlight how myths can be hyperbolized and do not always accurately portray the true nature of the characters. The story of Echo and Nemesis shows the complexity of human relationships and the importance of considering context and individual differences when interpreting myths and legends. The legendary confrontation between Echo and Nemesis began because of jealousy and envy. Nemesis, being the older sister, observed how the young and beautiful Echo attracted the gazes of everyone around her. She believed that Echo used her attractiveness and voice to manipulate people, which was considered unacceptable in their society. One day Echo accidentally offended Nemesis by saying that she was older and less beautiful than she was. This angered Nemesis, and she decided to take revenge by depriving Echo of her ability to speak and sing, thus taking away her main gift, her voice. After Nemesis punished Echo, an epidemic of silence spread among the people. Many Greek women and Greeks began to fear losing their voices if they dared to insult or anger Nemesis. People tried to avoid contact with her, considering her too harsh and implacable. Echo perceived this punishment as unjust and cruel. She turned to other gods, trying to regain her voice, but without success. However, Echo was not about to give up. She went to the temple where her grandmother Hephra lived and asked for her support. Hephra, being the goddess of material magic, used her magical powers and helped Echo regain her voice. When she finally found a way to restore her gift, Echo returned to her former state, but there was a change in her character. She became more reserved and serious, losing her childish playfulness and slight talkativeness. She was no longer dependent on external approval and other people's opinions. Echo began to appreciate her inner state and look at the world more deeply. She learned to analyze situations and take responsibility for her actions. This episode of Mythology shows how Echo and Nemesis personify opposite qualities, attractiveness and charisma on the one hand, and strictness and order on the other. This conflict and subsequent resolution demonstrate how myths sometimes exaggerated and distorted the actual characteristics of divine beings. It is important to realize that even divine beings could have human flaws and mistakes, which made them more approachable and understandable to humans. The story of Echo and Nemesis is an example of how myths can influence people's perceptions and actions. It reminds us to look deeper into the root of a problem and try to understand the motives behind other people's actions before drawing conclusions about their behavior. Myths are sometimes created out of personal fears and mistrust, and understanding them is the first step to interacting more harmoniously with the world around us.